Hello everyone, I am Rahul Gaikwad, Associate Professor, Department of English, Maharaja Jivaji Rao Shinde Mahavidyalaya Srigonda. Dear friends, today we are going to learn about the elements of novel conflict. See, conflict is an important element of novel without which we cannot have a proper plot. See, a conflict is the dramatic struggle between two forces in a story. See, it is a struggle. Conflict means struggle. It is a dramatic struggle between two forces in a story. Conflict is the relation between the protagonist and the antagonist. See, the relationship between the protagonist and antagonist can be called as the conflict. And you know that protagonist means in popular term we call him as the hero and antagonist is the villain, of course. It is not a very proper term in literature, but in popular terms we call protagonist hero and antagonist a villain. See, without conflict, I have told you earlier, there is no plot. See, the characters in a novel, how few goals to achieve. The protagonist has to achieve something, as well as the antagonist. And in a novel, or drama, or even in a movie, our concentration is always on the protagonist. And his struggle to achieve his goal or solve the problem is the conflict. The protagonist wants to achieve something, and his struggle to achieve it is called as the conflict. He faces some problems, he or she faces some problem, and the process of solving those problem is called as the conflict. Without conflict, there would be no story, no drama, and of course, no novel or movie also. See, conflict is a physical, mental, or moral struggle faced by the central character. See, conflict is a struggle, and that struggle has been faced by the protagonist, the central character. That struggle might be a physical one, sometimes it may be mental, and sometimes it may be a moral struggle. But the central character has to face that struggle. He has to go through the conflict or the struggle. See, conflict is a problem that must be solved. It is an issue between the protagonist and antagonist forces. What is a conflict? Conflict is the issue between the protagonist forces and the antagonist forces. And conflict forms the basis of the plot. What is the basis of plot? The conflict. Always keep this thing in your mind. See, we can classify conflict into two broad categories. One is external conflict and the another one is internal conflict. See, a struggle between a character and outside external forces can be called as the external conflict. What is external conflict? It is the conflict between outside forces and a character, and specifically the protagonist. The outside force may be a person, group, animal, nature, or a non human obstacle also. See, uh, in some of movies, the animals can be antagonist. Okay, sometimes the nature. You must have seen. You must have watched few Hollywood movies where non-human obstacles are there. There may be the conflict of a protagonist against fate, the against the fate or against the circumstances that stand between him and a goal he has set himself. The protagonist has to struggle not against a person or group or animal or nature. Sometimes he has to fight against the fates. Many times he has to fight against the circumstances that stand between him and his goal he has set himself. So this is the external conflict. We can also classify the external conflict into following categories. First is the conflict between characters, character versus character conflict. Here, another individual or group of individuals. Okay, the protagonist has to fight against another individual or a group of people. Then the second type of external conflict is the conflict between man and nature. Nature means something which is there in the environment, sometimes a volcano, earthquake, flood. Then there is a conflict between character and society. The very famous example is the play of Henrik Ibsen's play, The Enemy of the People. Then the conflict may be character versus the fate, a problem that seems uncontrollable. And the last type of external conflict is man versus machine. Robo, the famous example. See, as far as internal conflict is concerned, the internal conflict is a struggle that takes place in a character's mind. Therefore, it is called as the internal conflict. It is not visible outside, it is there in the mind of the protagonist. The internal conflict is the okay, this conflict is between opposing desires or values in the protagonist's own temperament. It is there in the mind of the protagonist. The conflict is between the opposing desires or opposing values in the protagonist's mind. It takes place in the protagonist's mind, and internal forces, man versus self. It is this kind of, okay, the character, the protagonist want to this, and want to do that also. And there's a struggle. He can't decide what to do. So at that time, this internal conflict arises. See, when you go through a novel, or if you when you watch a movie or drama, you must pay attention how the story ends. Many stories ends by resolving their conflicts. Most of the stories, and the way a problem is fixed or solved is the resolution. So the ultimate goal of a conflict is the resolution. So with this, we are going to conclude today's lesson. Thank you.